Hi, I'm Jim Heath. I'm the president of the Institute for Citizens Biology here in Seattle, Washington, and I'm here today with Dr. Sevda Malani, who has just had a paper published in Nature Scientific Reports. Congratulations.
Thank
What did you learn?
Sure. So in this study, we looked at patients with COVID-19 after they admitted to the hospital in order to help the doctors to know which patients are at higher risk of needing mechanical ventilation and why those patients are at higher risk. So from the beginning of the pandemic, doctors and researchers found that age and comorbidities are important. But right now we have more information, and we saw some patients who who were 100 years old and had some comorbidities, but they survived the infection. On the other side, there were patients who were younger, but they didn't. So making decisions only based on age and comorbidities is not enough, and that's the reason we conducted this paper, this research, and we divided patients into two age groups. And we found that when a patient is hospitalized, their biomedical observations, such as vital signs and lab results, are more important and predictive of the patient's outcome compared to age, demographics, and medical history. So actually making assumptions and decisions only based on age, medical history could sometimes be misleading. Also, we found that there is actually a difference between the predictive risk factors of younger patients and older patients.
So some of these early studies that basically parsed patients according to comorbidities and age, they were relatively small studies under conditions of care that were different than what evolved. And so your study was bigger, I'm guessing?
Yes, so we started with 1.5 million patients from Providence Network, and we narrowed it down by the patients who had at least one positive test between June and November 2021, and the ones that were hospitalized and had at least one lab test within 1 hour of their admission. So yes, it was much bigger than the other studies.
And from a point of view of educating physicians on what's important from your study, what do you think the take-home messages are?
So the main message is when you have a patient who is older and has diabetes, don't just assume that they have a higher risk of developing severe COVID-19 compared to a younger patient. Look at how they are doing right now, how their biomedical observations are, like vital signs and lab results.
And so in a study, with, I guess you started with 1.5 million and you ended up with just shy of 7,000 or something
Yes.
like that. And most of what you were studying, if I got the time frame correct, was Delta or the variant probably pre-Delta, right?
Yes, Delta.
What lessons do you think come out of this for the subsequent Omicron?
Our cohort only included the patients during Delta, but we think that right now, even with Omicron, the results should be similar, like the labs and vital signs should be more important than comorbidities, but which labs or which vital signs are more important might be a little bit different.
Right, I'm sure that's true.
Yeah.
So what am I forgetting to ask you?
In this study, we covered some of the problems that the other studies had. For example, we included the information of the patients that recently got COVID-19, which shows the improvements in the patient's treatment. And also we included some labs that are more common. A patient who gets to the hospital, they are more likely to get white blood cell count, but less than a third of them get D-dimers. So we included only the common labs. So we found that the risk factors are different between younger and older patients. So in the younger patients, we found that chronic comorbidities and even like cardiomyopathy, COPD, and malignancy, they have higher odds ratio compared to the older patients. Also, we found that BMI is highly correlated with the outcome of patients in younger group rather than the older group.
That's body mass index.
Yes.
And so, always in a study like this, it takes a village. Who did you collaborate with?
We collaborated with so many people in this research, but I need to say thanks to the Providence and especially Dr. Jason Goldman from the Swedish Providence in this research.
Great, thank you, Sevda. Very
Thank you.
interesting.
Thanks.
Nice talking.